Today we're going to discuss about a sharing model. So before discussing the sharing model, we'll discuss first about a role, public groups, and queues. Okay, basically all these three are nothing but a group of users. Roles also we assign it to a users. Public groups will add users as a members. Queues also will add users as a members. If you take a single user, we can assign a single role to him. Okay, he cannot be part of a multiple roles. So if you take any user, either he cannot have any role, or he belongs to a, or he's playing one of the role. Public groups. Public group is a group of users. Okay, so we create public group and we name it, and we add the members of the public group. So for example, if user one is a member of public group, he can member of any other groups. It's not restricted. He has to be member of one. Unlike role, user can be part of any number of public groups. Okay. Now coming to a queues. Queues are also exactly similar to a public group. You can create a queue and we can add the members. So what is the difference? Why we have a two public group and queue? The difference is queue can be used as a owner of any of the object record. So while creating a queue also, you have to mention to which objects these queues are supported. For example, if I create a queue, if I mention a case as object, then I can make or I can use this queue as a owner of the case records. If I add case and account, then I can use this queue to make the owner of the account or case records. Okay, can we make a public group as a owner? No, only user or a queue can be made as a owner of the records. Okay, let me show you what actually the role is and all. Okay, let's say if you go to a users records, setup, home, search users and user. If you open any of the record, there you see a role here. So we assign a role to a user. Okay, it's not a mandatory. If you don't want, you can select a non-specified so that there is a no role for this user. It's an optional thing. Okay. Okay, now if you see the user, you can see there's a public group membership. This means you can add this user to a different groups. And if you want to look at the user to what are all the public groups he is a member of, then you can see here and know how many groups he is a member. Now here you can see the navigation also, this one public groups. In a public groups, who are all can be a member? User can be the member of public group, and a role can be a member of a public group. So how a role can be a member? All the users who assigned with this role will be a members of the public group. And again, other public group also you can add to a group. Okay. So my group one. Just giving some name. Here you can see you can add other public groups, you can add roles, you can add a role and subordinates, and you can add a users. All these four types can be, you can add the membership of a public group. Okay, I have a users for now, so I'm just adding users to this public group. Okay, save. So I have a public group now. Let's say create a queue. You can see the queue is also here. Just go to the queue, can create a new, and you can see here itself the label, queue name, queue email, supported objects, modified by, last modified by. So these two you can see different from a public group. Okay, there has to be a email that will be responsible as a queue email. And what are all the supported objects for this queue? Okay. I'm creating a case queue one. Okay, I'm just giving some dummy email for now. Subjects I want to make it as a owner. Object is case. So which are all objects you want to add? You can add all this objects here. Who is going to be a queue members? Okay, I'm going to add a queue members. Done. Now I created a public group. I created a queue, and let's see your roles also. How roles will be defined. Okay, in an organization, it will be a hierarchical structure. You can see who is at the top, SF Tech Info Solutions, and next to it, CEO and CFO, COO, SVP, customer service and support, and below that, customer support, international customer support, North America, and in human resources we have, and in a market and sales and market we have a VPs, and below the VP we have a marketing team, and below this North American sales we have a director, channel sales, director, direct sales. So these are all the hierarchy. So if you see, they are a one step above and they are one step above. It means one role reporting to the other roles. This is structure. So when you create a new role also, you have to not only the name, the position in this hierarchy also important. That is what the role actually. What is your hierarchy of your organization and what is your role in that hierarchy? That is what it's defined and assigned to a user. So that's why we cannot have multiple roles for the user. For user, he's going to play one of the role in this hierarchy. Okay, so far we have seen a public group, queue, and roles. Done. Now, yeah, we're going to discuss that now. Now, let's jump onto a data security. Okay, what is a data security? In previous sessions, we discussed about the profiles and permissions, which is basically a permissions that we give or that we control for a given user. Now, today what we're discussing is about data security. That is, so what is the data first of all? So all the records that we see in these objects is a data. It could be any object, whatever the object it is, and data inside it is called a data. So how we secure this data? Securing this data means, so when we have multiple users in this org, how we can keep secure this data from one and each other. Okay, for example, I have accounts, okay, which is sensitive data and what I'm working. Nobody else in the org should not be aware of it. And similarly for everyone in this um, org, it would be same. Like who is working, it should not be disclosed to anyone else in the org. How we can do it? For example, some other orgs, sorry, some other objects. So account information I have, that's how I want to secure it. And coming to a stores, I should be able to see other stores. Okay, so for example, I'm a region VP. I should able to see all the stores in that region. Okay, and some of the information has to share across the or some of them I want to share across a group. Some of the team I want to keep private. Only I can see it, and nobody else in the org can see it. So this is what a different kind of a security we need to the data. Okay, what are all the different levels of security? Okay, and how we can achieve that in Salesforce. Okay, the first one is minimum level of security. That is a OWD. What we call it in short is a OWD, and what it means is org-wide defaults. So it's org-wide defaults, nothing that. What is a default or minimum access to all users in the org for the given as object records. Okay, so this OWD will be defined for each S object. It is each Salesforce object. We define the OWD. So if we have account, for account we have a OWD. If we have a case, we have OWD. If it is store, we have OWD, which decides the minimum level of access in the org. Okay, what is this minimum level of access? Beyond that, we cannot restrict the access. Okay, so there are multiple level of controlling the access. One is the OWD, and then sharing rules, and manual sharing, and profiles and permission sets. Okay, these are all different levels of sharing set, sharing the data. And OWD is a minimum level of access. Beyond that, we cannot restrict the access. Okay, now, so what are the different options? What are the different minimum level of access available on the OWD? That is private, public, read only, public read only, and public read write. public rewrite transfer. So these are the different level of accesses that we control at the OWD. Let's see one by one. What means if it is a private? So private means only owner of that record can access a record. Only owner of the record have a full access. So he is created or like he is the owner, then he can read it, he can edit, he can delete, he can modify anything he can do. That's a full access to the only owner, nobody else. Nobody else can access the record. Okay, as per the OWD. On top of the OWD, again, by using all this, you can increase it. But OWD is a minimum level of access. When you define it as a private, that means, and if you don't have all these at this object level, then that means that only owner have access to the record. Okay, now next one is a public read only. So here only owner have a full access, but public will have a read access. Who is the public? Other than the owner, everybody else in the org is a public, not outside the org. Here public means who have a Salesforce access for this particular org and they are users of this org and not the owner. They are considered as a public. Everybody in this org except the owner will have a read access and owner will have a read and a full access. Okay, and beyond this, you cannot restrict. You cannot make or do not have a read access for other users. You cannot do it. All the users by default have a public access. But there are some scenarios we will discuss. Okay, and here public read write means everything is same, but public will have a read write access. Okay, and public read write transfer. This transfer is only available for only few objects. That is a case and lead. Okay, this will be only applicable for this option. Case and lead only have this option called a transfer, but all other objects will have only these three options. Okay, that is for OWD. Now, let's see where we define the OWD in our arc. Okay, now use this wheel symbol and go to setup. Once you are in the setup and search for a sharing settings. In the sharing settings, you will see all the objects OWD defined. Okay, this is what a OWD. Here you can see all the objects over here, standard objects, custom objects. Everything will be shown here. And what is the default access? Public read write transfer, public read write, private, public read write, public read. They are different types of accesses. There are some places where you see a controlled by a parent. That means when you're having a master relationship between your objects. If you remember, we explained that the sharing and security of the child records will be completely controlled by the parent record. In those cases, it will show as a control by parent. and you cannot modify those. And if you want to change and edit, you don't see there is no other options available. Okay, these are the standard objects. So we have these options. But when we have here in custom objects, if you remember, the location and store are controlled by the master detail relationships. If you see here, the store is controlled by parent and you don't have an option when you select here. You don't see option to select. But whereas in standard objects for account, contact, and these are all standard relationships, here we cannot change this relationship. Why? Because they are standard and they'll when you go to the field and look at it looks like a lookup, but internally they act as a master. But you cannot change that relationship. That way Salesforce give an option to control here. At least the access level also we can make it individually, either controlled by account or you can have it individually. As a Salesforce gave this option to leverage the relationship. Okay, but if you take a master deal relationship, then you cannot have other option of security. Now, here, if I make a private, only owners can see this records, nobody else in this. And other thing is, once we make any changes in the sharing settings, so I change it to a private, but see, it is changed to a private or not? It's not changed to private yet. Why? Because it will take some time to recalculate the sharing to the existing users because I'm reducing or if you're increasing whatever the changes you made, system or Salesforce has to calculate those sharing for all the records and do those jobs completed and it will send a email to you once the job is done. Because I have less records, just if I refresh itself, I'll get this confirmation saying that it is changed to a private. If I check my email also, it might have already sent an email saying that the sharing security has been calculated, so it is ready now. Okay, we have seen a OWD, which is fine. Now let's look at the grant access using hierarchy. This is one way of leveraging it. Here you can see grant access using hierarchy. What actually it means. Grant access using hierarchy means we have a roles, right, which is in the hierarchical structure. So what will happen was if you want to share the records to the hierarchical users, that means you are the owner of the record, okay, and you are reporting to a user. So when you enable this grant access using hierarchy, what will happen is whatever the records that you see, that will be shared with your superior, that's your manager or whoever it is in your role hierarchy who is at the top of the user. The top users can see or possess the records of what their subordinates are viewing, whether it's a read, write, transfer, whatever it is. However, they have access in the same level of access they will automatically get when you enable the grant access using hierarchy for this object. For all the standard objects, there is no option to disable the grant access using hierarchy. But for custom objects, you have option to either enable or disable. You have option, but standard objects, you don't have option to disable this option. By default, they are enabled. Okay, so that is what a grant access using hierarchy. In simple words, whatever the access level you OWD you define, if you enable the grant access using hierarchy in a roles, the superior position or a role, they can access their subordinates records even though they don't have. If they already have it, they will be having it. If they don't have access indirect, to the records. They are not owners of any record. Usually, if the object OWD is private, then they don't have any access. But if you allow grant access using hierarchy, even though they are not owner, because they are in um, the top or like a superior in the role hierarchy, and you enable the grant access using hierarchy, they will get all the records that their subordinates have access. Okay, that is the grant access using a hierarchy. Okay, fine. So far, what happens? Either we can keep the data secure in all these ways, private, public read or public read write. So if you like leverage and understand a way, if you have a record in Salesforce, either you can secure it only to that user or all the users, or a role hierarchy wise, like to whom you are reporting, only they can see when you enable the grant access using hierarchy. Okay, this is what we can control so far what we have. But suppose if I want to share the data with a group of users to whom I work with. For example, I am a sales rep role. Okay. And we work as a team. Sales reps, we work as a team and we share the load and we do a teamwork. Okay. But I made this source as a private to restrict the access. But we are the sales reps as one of the role, and we are on the same role, all the sales reps, and we want to share the data among ourselves. In a role hierarchy also, if you are at the top role, then you can see the subordinates. But you are in the same role, then how you can see the data? If you make public read, everybody in the R can see. If you have a role hierarchy, then I cannot share the same role records with the other users. Then we can use this sharing rules. The sharing rules will help. The sharing rules will help with the different types of sharing. Okay, one is a owner based sharing and one is a criteria based sharing. So what the discuss with scenario was, when I am the same role, I'd like to share the records. Okay, how I can do it? For now, I would like to share the records of the Walmart location. Okay, in Walmart location, this is the object, and on this object, I define the access as a private, and I want to write a sharing rule. That is, when the record is owned by a user who is belong to a one role, all the users in that role should be able to access the record. Okay, so that is called a owner based sharing rule. When you share the record based on the owner's role, based on the record owner, I'm going to share this record. So select which records to be shared, owned by a members of. So who is the member of that owner? If he is belongs to, for example, director channel sales, for example, then select the users to share with. I'm going to share with the roles. That roles also same as a channel sales. So what happens if I do this? Whenever the owner role is directed channel sales, all the users in that role will be shared this record. So everyone in this role will get access. So anyone in this role have access will be shared across the roles. And what is the level of access? Read only or read write? I'm giving it as a read only access and do a save. Okay, so again, it will take some time to reflect my role, see, my rule to get activated. Okay, so on a location, I created this role. Okay, so let's go to a location first. Okay, so I don't have a location for this one. Like to add more items, locations, Walmart location. Okay, I'm going to create a new list here and see what are the locations available here. Fields to display. Store location. So Walmart location is here. So I'm the owner and I want to see to whom this record is being shared. Sharing, not this one. I'd like to see a sharing hierarchy. To whom this record is being shared. Okay. So it's saying hashtag batch 4 is the user having a full access with the